what's up everyone? My name is Jeff, and today we're going to have some fun diving into more spoilers with Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, one of the coolest sets I think I've seen in a while from Wizards of the Coast, and I am really stoked for this one. So we're going to dive into this right away with a new planeswalker, Zariel, Archduke of, man, I really don't like whenever they just cover up the name with this. Like if it's like restated somewhere else in the text, that'd be cool, but it's not restated anywhere else. So my dyslexia looks at that and it's like, ah. And sorry guys, I know I'm the dyslexic person that's trying to read all these cards, all that kind of stuff. And so sorry, I got a lot of things wrong on the last time, but we're still moving forward. All right, so 4 mana planeswalker with 4 loyalty, +1 creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. Actually pretty decent. And then 0, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. That's just like oh, I can't remember his name, but we've had other planeswalkers that did that, and it's actually a pretty good defense mechanism because you can block one creature with it and chump, and then maybe even kill something else. There's a lot of creatures with 1 toughness, so it's pretty nice. And then the -6, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your first combat phase on your turn, untap target creature you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So it's an emblem. It happens every turn. You get an additional combat with at least 1 creature to be able to attack in with. That's pretty sweet stuff. All right, let's dive into one of the, actually this is one of my like cards I'm most hyped for. I think that this is a card that will see play in lots of places just because it's a really powerful, good 2-drop in green. And so yeah, Werewolf pack leader, 2 mana, 3/3 pack tactics, which there's actually a lot of these pack tactics cards. Like there's a lot of the effects that are not actual mechanics for the set, they're just for flavor. And then there's this pack tactics, which seems to be actually repeated over and over again, where if you attack in, if it attacked in and you had total power of 6 or greater with creatures this combat, then draw a card. There's lots of different effects in common and uncommon cards. I'm not going to show all those cards necessarily because I have only a little bit of time, but they venture into the dungeon, they untap or tap down target creature, those types of effects. So, or gain first strike. So there's some pretty cool effects. This one lets you draw a card, which is huge. The fact that you can have multiple of these out on the battlefield, like let's say you have 3 of them every once in a while in a deck that runs 4 of these, you get to attack in and draw 3 cards with 9 power for a cumulative of 6 CMC. That is just busted. And then you can also pay 4 until end of turn. Werewolf pack leader has base power and toughness 5/3 and gains trample and isn't human, so full on werewolf, which kind of an interesting thing. You could mutate onto it at that point. I'm not sure if that really will matter. That's a lot of mana to really do, but you could at that point remutate. There's a lot of like green stompy decks that want to be running Gem Razor or whatever else, and having the ability to turn it into not a human could be interesting, but yeah, we'll see. Anyway, on the next one, Gelatinous cube. That's right. And sorry for the quality on this one, but 4 mana, 4/3, and it has engulf. This is what I'm saying. Like there's all these like little effects. They're not actually mechanics. They're just there kind of as flavor. And some people get frustrated with them. I think they're actually kind of fun. But engulf, whenever Gelatinous cube enters the battlefield, exile target non-ooze creature an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. So if it does leave the battlefield, they get it back. But a pretty good removal spell. Ravenous Chupacabra, 2 mana, just destroy target creature, and it was a 2/2 for the same amount of mana. Having this be a 4/3 is awesome. And then you can also dissolve, so X into black, put target creature card with mana value X exiled with Gelatinous cube into its owner's graveyard. So of course tokens, this can just dominate tokens all day long because you don't have to dissolve it, because it will just, if it goes back to the battlefield, it leaves at the point that it's exiled. It's no longer exists. So no worries about tokens. But any like cheaper creatures, things like that, you can dissolve them away and it's fine. If ever, and this is, you can do this at instant speed. So if ever someone has removal or board wipe for Gelatinous cube, it's going to die, you can just hopefully spend the mana and then they won't get the creature back. So pretty sweet stuff. This does still die to Skyclave Apparition because it's in that 4 mana slot, and so you probably do want to be trying to hold up the dissolve if it's an important creature. But overall, I think this is a pretty sweet card. It's blinkable, kind of. I mean, the whole fact that the stuff comes back is a little bit bad, but I still think I think you rate it basically the same levels as Ravenous Chupacabra. It has higher power, which is really good, but it does give the creature back at times, which is less good than Ravenous Chupacabra, but still decent. All right, next one. The Book of Vile Darkness, 3 mana legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if you lost 2 or more life this turn, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So pretty sweet with any of the formats that have shock lands. You can kind of control that a little bit more. There's other ways to make sure that you lose life as well, and so that can actually be pretty sweet. So it's beginning of your end step, so you have to force yourself to lose life somehow to make sure that you can't do that. So any kind of pay life effects giving you the 2 black, and then this says tap this, exile the Book of Vile Darkness and artifacts you control named Eye of Vesna and Hand of Vesna, or Vecna, and create Vesna, a legendary 8/8 black zombie god creature token with indestructible. It gains all triggered abilities of the exile card. So we don't yet, I've not seen Eye of Vecna and the Hand of Vecna just yet, and so excited to see what those ones do as well, if they're really powerful. Like, I'm hoping one of them will be able to let you lose 2 life and to activate or something like that and be able to get the things. It looks like they're all triggered abilities because it gains all triggered abilities of the exile card, so they're all going to have some sort of triggered ability, which I think will be pretty interesting. Yeah, so excited to see what those end up being. On to the next one. Grazilax Illithid Scholar. 3 mana, legendary creature, horror, 3/2. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. It's actually a really interesting effect. So whenever a creature that you control becomes blocked, so and it's a May ability, so if you're going to win the trade-off, or it's something you're willing to kill on their side of the board, you can let it go. But if they just block, you know, they flash into Brazen Bar and block a flyer or whatever it is, something like that, you can bounce it back to hand and have a good effect, you know, back in hand, or have more cards in hand. Then whenever more and more creatures you control deal combat damage to your player, draw a card. And so it's 1 or more, unfortunately, so you're only ever drawing 1 card per turn with that. But I kind of like that blue has kind of a commander of some sort for the more aggro-y style of blue, you know, the tempo-y hitting for damage style of blue. And so I actually think this is decent. I'm not sure if it goes into constructed formats, but I think in Brawl it's pretty nice, and I think that it could be a decent commander as well for, you know, it's just kind of a fun different kind of commander, maybe with rogues or something like that. It could be decent, and so it's interesting. I think actually with rogues it could be kind of terrifying, but it's also not a rogue, so I'm not sure if it would fit into that deck. That deck's already terrifying enough. All right, on to the next one. Orb of Dragonkind, 2 mana artifact. You can pay 1 to tap this and add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells or activate abilities of dragons. So it is a 2 mana rock. You know, pay 1, add 2 mana, just like all the signets or whatever, but only for dragons. And there's tons of dragons in the 3-drop slot. There's tons of, you know, everything that we're getting here, and there's still plenty of dragons up in the top end that this can be really useful for. Having multiple of these could be pretty sweet to make sure that you're ramping up to a Velomachus or whatever, that kind of thing. And then you can also pay red, tap it, and sacrifice it to look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a dragon card from among them and put it into your hand, put the rest into the bottom of the library in random order. So if you're just looking for more dragons, it also works there. So I like this card. I think it's good. We've seen a lot of different dragon artifacts. I don't think it's quite in the level of Dragon's Horde where you can draw cards as well, but the Sarkhan's effect of being able to add 2 mana at 3, and that was a 3 mana planeswalker, was actually really effective. And so I think that having this as well, especially, you know, getting multiple of these on the battlefield, could actually be really good in a dragon deck. So I'm excited to see if dragons become a thing. Even Death Dracoliche. This card, 4 mana, 5/2 zombie dragon with flash and flying, and when it enters battlefield, it enters battlefield tapped. And then you may cast it from your graveyard if a creature not named this died this turn. So if any other creature died, so it's just if any creature died that's not named this turn died. And so pretty sweet. The fact that it has flash as well means that if there's something that theirs dies, they swing in for attacks, whatever, you can bring this back as a 5 power flash flying attacker. And the fact that it can keep coming back, like, actually this almost fits into like a control deck. Just the power that it has, the ability to keep coming back over and over again, actually kind of fits it into like that level of like, it's actually decent. I'm not sure if that would be like, it's kind of weird. It could fit into a control deck, and I feel like this is like a really good staple. I like this better than Rankle, actually, in a lot of ways. Rankle is really powerful, really good, but the fact that this just has 5 power and in the evasiveness and everything like that. Sometimes with Wrinkle in like a mono black aggro deck, you're just wanting to get in damage. And so I think mono black aggro wants this, and like there's other decks that would want something like this. And so it's actually a really powerful card. Yeah, I'm intrigued by this one. All right. Adult Gold Dragon, 5 mana, 4/3 with flying, lifelink, and haste. And just that's it, but that's good enough. It's really good. We've seen over and over again that a 5 mana 4/4 with haste and flying is really good. We've seen that with Goldspan Dragon. We've seen that with a bunch of stuff. Goldspan Dragon has a bunch of other effects, but just the fact that this is another dragon for a dragon deck and it has lifelink as well in that slot is just really good. The Velomachus Dragon's deck seems like it's going to be legit, and any other color you want to splash in for other dragons seems like that's going to be really good too. And so I'm excited to kind of see what other dragons we get. There are some other common and uncommon dragons that we got, like just, you know, black dragon, green dragon, all those kind of things. They have effects. I decided not to throw them into this spoiler video just because they weren't amazing, but they are some other dragons if you guys want to see them. You can definitely go check out MTG Goldfish or mtgpreviews.com if you guys want to check out stuff. That's where I get all my spoilers from. There's like a million other places that I used to check and stuff, but I like their stuff, and so kudos to them. Anyway, Battlecry Goblin, 2 mana, 2/2. You can pay 2, and goblins you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. That is a huge effect. Well, let's read all the rest of it and then we'll come back to that. Pack Tactics, again, we get to see that whenever Battlecry Goblin attacks, if you attack with creatures with total power 6 or greater this combat, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. All right, so that's pretty sweet too. The fact that it goes wide, you can just pay 2 to give everything +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. There's a deck that's been called 8 Whack Goblins in Modern that basically wanted that effect. Creatures you control gain haste and +1/+0 until end of turn. And the whole idea was just to go really wide with goblins and then be able to have that effect come in, give everything +1/+0 and gain haste. And if you're wide enough and it happens a couple times in a turn, you just win the game. This has the ability to do that with just 4 mana. You know, that's really, really powerful. And if you do it, you know, giving everything haste, you're wanting to do this before combat oftentimes anyway. So you want to attack it and you can do it. Sorry, my son is screaming out there. And if you can't activate it a couple times, you typically want to do it you know, after you create the other goblin. And so this is kind of a weird card, but I think this is a busted card for goblins. I'm not sure how many goblins are actually in standard, but I think Historic wants to use this. I think it's a really good card in general. All right, up against Ochre Jelly, X and green, 0/0 trample. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and then it can split where Ochre Jelly dies. If it had 2 or more +1/+1 counters on it, create a token that's a copy of it at the beginning of the next end step. That token enters the battlefield with half that many +1/+1 counters rounded down. So I actually like this. So as long as it has multiple, like, you know, more than 2 counters, you can just make an extra copy of it and keeps getting smaller and smaller, like Hydra type of effect. And so I really like that. I feel like this is what I've always wanted Hydras to kind of be like. I guess Hydras are a little bit different though. But anyway, this is really cool. I like it. It's a good card. How about that? All right. Up against next up is white, 2 mana 3/2. When it enters the battlefield tapped, and then it has life drain. Whenever a creature dealt damage by white this turn dies, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token and exile that card. So that's really cool. The hard part is that this only has 2 toughness. And so I feel like this is just the thing that people won't be chump blocking. The biggest benefit this gives is if you're playing a mono black aggro deck, or just, you know, it might be Rakdos aggro or whatever, an aggro deck with this, this is the thing they're probably not wanting to chump block. And with 3 power, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to, like, you know, they're going to be wanting to block something with 3 power more often than something with 2 power, whatever, that kind of thing. But if it means that they also are going to make you a 2/2 black zombie, and this is if they chump block with tokens, and there still are lots of token chump blockers in the format and everything, with Sun's Omen of the Sun. tokens, a bunch of other stuff like that, that every once in a while this could be really useful. I feel like the biggest issue is that it's just going to trade off, but at the same time though, it trades off, exiles that creature, and you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token, and it's pretty nice. The one thing I'm not sure about is if life drain continues even after white dies, and then you like have a removal spell to have that thing die after damage was dealt. I don't know how that really works. Like, so if you swing in, they flash in a creature that blocks and trades off, and white dies, and then you have a removal spell to destroy that creature, would you still get the 2/2 black zombie, or would the ability no longer be on the stack or anything like that? I'm really not sure how that works with these kinds of cards, so I don't know. All right, next one. Wish. 3 mana sorcery. You may play a card you own from outside the game this turn. Really straightforward. Just 3 mana to be able to play something outside the game. And it's only for that turn is the issue. You can't bring it to hand. You can't do anything else. So it requires tons of mana to be able to activate this. Or you just have Grafdigger's Cage in the sideboard. Or you just have things like that where like it just can shut down an opponent's deck. And so Tormod's Crypt can be for 0 cost. And so honestly, it's not bad if that's what you're playing it for. And then maybe you're ramping up to get to other things. And so that's where I feel like I would run this. Like there's Weatherstone Rune. This is the Grafdigger's version for standard right now. There's Tormod's Crypts, just a bunch of good hate cards that are out there that you can throw into a deck, and Wish does allow that to be pretty powerful. All right, we get a blue dragon turtle. And it's just Dragon Turtle. That's what it's called. I love that its name and its creature types are the exact same. All right, 3 mana, 3/5 with flash. And when it enters the battlefield, tap it, and up to 1 target creature an opponent controls, they don't untap during their controller's next untap step. So it doesn't let you actually keep the Dragon Turtle. The issue here too is that anytime that you play Dragon Turtle, it won't untap on the first time that comes out, because regardless of whether or not they have a creature to tap down and have that work with, you just won't be able to get the Dragon Turtle. But whenever they do get to untap it, at some point you're going to untap your Dragon Turtle before they untap their creature, so you're going to at least have a blocker as well at some point. And so it does kind of shut them down for 3 turns, and that's a really good play in a blue deck for 3 mana. At the same time, though, you don't get to keep the creature, so it's not quite tempo-y, I feel like, but it's a decent play. It does put power onto the battlefield and allows you to have more time, and that is exactly what you're looking for in a tempo-y type of deck. The fact that this can just shut down the creature that has the Embercleave that at flash speed is pretty sweet. And so I both love this card, and I think I'm not sure if it's quite what I'd want to have happen, rather than just bouncing the creature or countering spells, or like, because this card takes up those slots. And so I'm not totally sure. I think that this kind of comes into the 3-drop slot maybe over Brazen Borrowers once those go away. So I think it's an interesting card. I'm still not sure exactly. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about this card, because I like it and I'm also unsure at the same time. I've said that 100 times. All right, Oswald, Fiddlebender. 2 mana, 2/2, and you can enchant item. So pay white, tap it, sacrifice an artifact, and search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrifice artifact mana value. Put that card onto the battlefield and shuffle. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is a birthing pod for artifacts. So if you have an artifact that can come into the battlefield and then untap Oswald, you can do it again. Only at sorcery speed. There are some other artifacts that work that. And this is just artifacts. They can be creature artifacts. They can be whatever. So kind of in addition to the birthing pod type of effects, but also for just any artifacts. I'm interested to see what all can happen there. There's a lot of artifacts that just immediately come in and can tap for extra mana. And so I'm kind of, because they come in untapped and you can add mana right away. And so the fact that you can end up having tons of mana with this effect is actually really, really cool. You can tap a Mind Stone, sacrifice it, go grab something that adds more mana. Or there's the Hedron Archive that adds 2 mana. At 4 mana, and then you can tap it, sacrifice it, go grab a Gilded Lotus, which taps for 3 mana, go sack it for a Hedron, what's the 6 mana Hedron one, for 3 mana, and then go find a Chrome, whatever it's called. There's the card that taps for 5 mana, and colorless mana can be used for any color. chromatic orrery. There it is. Something like that. And as long as you have ways to untap him and do it over and over again, you can go, up the curve all the way up to a chromatic orrery or some other better thing, and can be really busted. And so I think this is a really strong, powerful card. I think it'll be a really good commander. I'm not positive it's good enough in standard, just because of what is available, what's not. At the same time, though, Bolas's Citadel is in the format. Any way to get to Bolas's Citadel quicker makes it pretty scary. So this is pretty good stuff. All right, next one. Into some of the uncommon cards. There's actually a lot of really good common and uncommon cards. Too many actually for me to put all of them into this one. And there's a lot of cards where I typically, I'm like, okay, there's very clearly these aren't quite as worth talking about, and other ones are. And I was actually having a hard time. There's a lot of cards that have multiple effects. I decided not to go over to all of them because I would have added like an extra 10 to 20 cards into this one. And so we still have about 7 cards to talk about here with the uncommon slot. But just letting you know, I'm talking about the ones I think are the most, like, these ones you need to know about. And there's plenty of other ones out there. So again, go check out mtgpreviews.com, and it's good stuff. All right. Target Demon Fang Gnoll, 2 mana, 2/2. Pack tactics. Whenever it attacks, if you attack with the 6 power or greater this combat, attacking creatures, you get +1/+0 until end of turn. The fact that this is a legendary creature is pretty nice. It actually would be better if it wasn't, so that you can have multiples out there and everything like that. But it is just a pretty powerful effect. And then you can pay 4 mana to double its power and toughness until end of turn. And so if you've already got the pack tactics effect, then it becomes a 6/4, which is a really powerful attacker. If you have lots and lots of mana, you can double again and do stuff. And I always love any kind of card that doubles its power. That's quite a bit of mana to do so. Maybe there's a Zerta type effect where you can reduce the amount of mana to activate this. It's only 2 mana to do it, and you can have 6 mana to double enough times to win a game immediately or something like that. So there is some kind of combo-ish deck out there with Zerta, but for the most part, it's just a decent card that can be used in Gruul. And anytime scary things come in Gruul, we should all talk about it because it's scary. All right, Criddle of Baldur's Gate, 2 mana, 1/3, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses 1 life and mills a card. So more milling with rogues, and you get to gain 1 life and scry 1. So I'm not sure if this actually comes into the rogues deck as is, although there's a lot of pieces leaving, and I'm not sure if there's actually going to be a rogues deck afterwards, but it's just a decent card in general, and it's a commander, which is kind of cool. And then whenever you attack, you may pay 2. If you do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. And that doesn't require it to attack. It's just if any creatures attack, you can pay 2. And if you do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So giving unblockable to rogues is pretty interesting. I could see this coming in as a 1 of or 2 of in the rogues deck already, just because the effects are powerful. But at the same time, though, I'm not sure it's as good as all the rogues are already out there. It's kind of sad. This has a lot of text and all of it's pretty decent, but it's just not as powerful as all the other rogues we already have. It's just scary. All right, we also got Fly, 1 mana aura, enchanted creature has flying, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, venture into the dungeon. So a good way to give stuff venture into dungeon, and this can stack up. And so I've been trying to look for things that will allow you to venture in the dungeon a lot in the early game. Playing out an evasive creature, a flyer or something like that, playing out 2 flies onto a creature, venturing twice is a really big deal. And so I wanted to talk about that. It gives flying as well to creatures, so this is just another good flying effect for an aura. I think this will actually see a decent amount of play for the venture decks. We'll see if venture has good enough payoffs. So far, there's not been enough payoffs that have come out for if you completed dungeons or if you do everything. Just venturing itself gives some decent value. There's quite a few good effects in the venturing stuff, but I'm not sure if it's as powerful as I'm hoping that we get some more payoffs for having completed dungeons and seeing how good those are. I really hope that we get if you completed 3 dungeons, that you then win the game. I just want that to happen. I want to win the game by just adventuring the dungeons. Okay. All right. Ray of Frost, 2 mana aura flash enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, if enchanted creature was red, tap it. Enchanted creature loses all abilities as long as it is red, and enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So if it's not red, you just go to the bottom one here, and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. For 2 mana, it's still a decent one. The fact that it has flash and it's at 2 mana actually puts it into the realm of being a pretty decent removal spell, as long as something they attacked in, put it on there, or you can even put it on before they attack in and say, hey, if you're going to attack with that creature, you don't get that creature again. And that actually can play a little bit of mind game of like, okay, I might want to hold this up for blockers, things like that. And so you might actually like save yourself 3 points of damage by flashing this onto a creature earlier on. If it's red, boom, bam, it's just done for. And so this is a card that I think it will be a sideboard card against red decks, and could potentially be a main deck card just if there's enough good red decks out there or something like that. It's a decent card. Throwing this onto whatever Embercleave comes onto or something like that, or is about to come onto, throw this onto it, tap it down. They can't play Embercleave. Boom, bam, done. It's good stuff. All right, next one. Hunter's Mark, kind of in the same realm here. 4 mana instant. This spell costs 3 less if it targets a blue permanent you don't control. And this spell can't be countered. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So 1 mana destroy a blue permanent, basically. Either the planeswalker or creature. Not blue permanent, because there's a lot of other things, but a blue planeswalker creature, as long as you also have a decent creature. So that's the one issue here, is that I feel like it requires you to have a creature first, and if their stuff is blue, then it can remove stuff. At the same time, though, it's a decent card. Like, this is fantastic and limited, because it can hit any creature or any color of creatures or planeswalkers, but hitting blue stuff is where this is going to be really powerful. And so in limited, fantastic card. In constructed, I'm not sure, honestly. I think this goes into the sideboard in green decks. It could potentially see more play if there's just a lot of really oppressive blue cards out there that you need to get rid of. But I don't think that you play it in an aggro deck, in a mono green stompy deck, or in a green deck type of thing, just in the main deck. I think it's more of a sideboard card, but I wanted to at least bring it up because it's in that kind of cycle of the same type of thing, hating on a specific color. And then the last card here, Keen-Eared Sentry. And actually, I'm going to go check and see if there's more cards after this one, so we'll see. But 2 mana, 2/1, Human Soldier. You have hexproof, which is pretty nice. And then your opponents can't venture into the dungeon more than once each turn. A little bit of hate card on venture. I wanted to at least showcase that there is that. Let me go check on some other cards real quick. All right, we got a lot of stuff that just really came out. Sorry about that. Let's dive into it. Here we go. So next one, and some of these I'm reading for the first time. I just saw that they were good enough to talk about and throw them in. So this one, Death's Whisper, 4 mana, 1/3, Bewitching Whispers. When it enters the battlefield, target creature blocks this turn of Able. Interesting effect. I like it. So good for Death Touch decks. Whispers of the Grave. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, you may pay 2 life if you do draw a card. So this is something that does pay 2 life for the other thing that can make zombies. So that is good to know. And so if a creature died this turn, pay 2 life if you do draw cards. So being able to draw cards is nice. Interesting. Yeah, I don't, this isn't like fantastic or amazing. It is an uncommon card, but it's intriguing. It can fit into some decks out there for sure. All right. You find a cursed idol, 2 mana sorcery. I thought this is powerful effect. Anything that has three modal things and all of them are good for 2 mana is worth talking about. So sorcery speed is probably the only downside of this card. You can smash it, destroy target artifact. You can lift the curse, destroy target enchantment, or you can steal its eyes, create a treasure token, and venture into the dungeon. So come across a cursed idol, do whatever you want to do. And so that's cool. That's a lot of things you can do. It's 2 mana, gain a treasure, and venture into the dungeon. And there are some dungeon rooms that give you treasures as well. So the fact that this is a 2 mana potentially ramp up with 2 treasures is huge. And so this is a really powerful card. We'll see tons of play. I wanted to at least show this off. Really good stuff. And the fact that it's sorcery speed in the late game, you can just destroy artifacts you need to get rid of or enchantments, or in the early game, if you need to do that instead, yeah, do it. But I think that the main thing you're playing for this is the steal its eye side of things. You want to get the treasure token and venture into the dungeon. Early in the game is really important, and having multiple of these, this is good stuff. I like it. All right. I've not read this one yet. Yuan-ti malison, 2 mana 2/1 snake rogue, more rogues. Can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, venture into a dungeon. All right, so more things that actually venture early in the game. So this is really nice. Whenever it attacks alone, that's good. Again, we need to see what the effects are of getting through the dungeon is nice. Just going through the dungeons themselves, I think are okay. They are powerful, but it's really hard to stack up the things that are the effects that are happening and having it work with what's on the board at the same time. And so interesting. We'll see. All right, Clever Conjurer, 3 mana, 2/3. Another common that I think is worth talking about here. Mage Hand, just tap to untap target permanent that's not named Clever Conjurer, activate only as a sorcery. So it can't untap another copy of itself, which is good. So it can't untap itself or other copies of itself because it just said named Clever Conjurer. If there's a way that you could it's a gnome wizard, so as long as you can mutate one of them, though, you have infinite untap and that kind of stuff. And so I'm not totally sure what you can get from that, but you could, and it would be cool. So there is an infinite combo already just by having mutate cards available to do some sort of thing there. And then if there's any kind of auras that, like when this thing taps, add mana or that kind of stuff, there's a lot of different things out there that you can do some pretty cool things. And so, but just in general, what this card would probably be used for, untapping a land is really nice. Untapping artifacts that tap for lots of mana. So mana ramp I think is good, and then any kind of effect. There's just a lot of things that untapping target permanents is nice to have. There's lots of commander cards, so I figured I'd throw this one out there because it's actually a pretty cool card. All right, and then we have Grim Wanderer, 2 mana, another uncommon that's pretty sweet. 2 mana, 5/3 with flash, but Tragic Backstory says that you can cast a spell only if a creature died this turn. So you can control whether or not things are dying pretty well. You know, make sure that if you attack him with a creature, will obviously get chump blocked and killed, or trade off with a pest that they have out on the battlefield or something like that. But then you get a flash in with a 5/3, or they're attacking in and you chump with a pest token or something like that. Again, this is just a really good card for 2 mana for that stat line with not a whole lot of downside is really, really good. The downside is that you can only cast it if a creature died, but the fact that you have flash as well makes it totally possible to do. There are going to be times that you don't have it, but hopefully you'll be able to hold on to other cards and whatever, and it makes it decent. And so does this come down on turn 2 that often? I'm not sure. I kind of doubt it. But turn 3, is this still a really powerful play? I think so. I think it's pretty good. If you have a Blood Chief's Thirst and then play this out on turn 3, kill something of theirs that's 2 mana or less, and then play this out as a 5/3. Totally worth playing in a mono black aggro deck. And so mono black aggro is already looking really scary just from the cards we've seen already. And here's another addition to it. Shambling Ghast, 1 mana 1/1. Whenever it dies, you get to choose to brave the stench. Target creature and opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So not amazing, but it makes it a really good chump blocker or an attacker where it attacks in, and if something has 2 toughness, they can't really trade off because it's going to die. You can also just search the body and create a treasure token if ever it dies. So if there's a board wipe, you get an extra treasure, you get some extra mana out of it. Anything that creates treasure, anything that creates mana that's usable later on or whatever, I think is just more worthwhile. So a 1 mana card that can eventually or potentially make some treasure tokens. And this also lets you play the last card we were talking about here. So if it dies to some sort of sacrifice effect that maybe takes 1 mana, like a Village Rites, whatever, it creates another treasure. So you can actually play out Grim Wanderer on turn 2 by using that treasure token. So I really like the effects you can have with it. So I'm a big fan of this card. In fact, you can do all of that at instant speed. Sacrifice this to draw 2 cards and then play the Grim Wanderer all at instant speed, and so then you can swing it for 5 damage on the next turn. Like, that's a really powerful play. So I really like this card. I think it's good. All right. Onto Meteor Swarm, X in 3 mana sorcery. It deals 8 damage divided as you choose among 8 X target creatures and or planeswalkers. That's actually pretty good. So 4 mana, just destroy a creature or planeswalker, basically. At sorcery speed is a little bit less good. At the same time, for 5 mana, you get to kill 2 things. It's 8 damage divided as you choose, and so I'm in between with this card so far. So this is like my first time reading it, but I like it and I don't all at the same time. 4 mana just to kill something. It kills an Elder Gargaroth. That's a really big deal. That's something that mono red doesn't always have. And so Shatterful Smashing can kill it, but it takes a lot more mana to do than this. This is just 4 mana. You get to kill an Elder Gargaroth. You get with 5 mana, you get to kill an Elder Gargaroth and something else on their board at the same time, like something with 2 or 1 power, planeswalker or whatever. And so honestly, I'm a big fan of this. I think it's a pretty good card. I think that in a red deck, it might come in as a 1 or 2 of, just for those, or maybe in a cyborg card against the matchups that you need. If you're playing best of 1, which I typically do in standard, I think that it's maybe a 1 of. It doesn't really fit exactly the aggro mold, but if you're playing anything else in red, like dragons decks or anything like that, this could actually come in and be a really good removal spell. And if you're in the colors that don't have the other good removal, and so I think it's actually a really powerful, a good alternative effect that you can play. All right, you happen upon a glade. 3 mana, instant, choose one, journey on, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put into your hand, and then shuffle, or return target permanent card from graveyard to your hand. I like this one just because it's instant speed. I think that this is the instant speed version of Cultivate. And there's a lot of times when you're playing, Simic decks or whatever, where you want to cultivate, but you also want to be able to hold up a counter spell. I think this is exactly the card that you play instead of Cultivate in those situations where, you don't get to put a land directly onto the battlefield. You're not ramping, but at the same time, though, you're making sure that you're hitting your land drops, which in a control deck, that's actually what you want to do, or Simic decks or whatever. A lot of time, that's actually what you're hoping to do. And then being able to return the important card back from the graveyard. So any kind of ramp deck that is playing blue as well, that wants to have counter spells held up, that is also having some sort of combo effect, this card just slots into there perfectly. And so I wanted to talk about it because I feel like that is worth talking about. Being able to just put two land cards into your hand, make sure you have land drops for 2 more turns at instant speed, is pretty big deal. And then having an extra effect on there with it just makes it even better. And so I'm actually a big fan of this card. All right, and it looks like that actually brings us to the end of spoilers for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for hopping on. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe. More stuff will be coming out. Spoiler season is pretty quick here, so we're going to be having lots of cards to be talking about each time. And like I said, I'm not putting in every single card that's out there, but just the ones that I feel like are worth talking about here. And so this is a lot of cards already. We'll have more stuff tomorrow. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. See you guys in the next one. Bye.